You've got it all planned out. The second society collapses, you're raiding the armory. Tactical knife, military-grade firearm, maybe something with rails and optics if you're feeling fancy. Sounds reasonable until you realize three things. 1. Every other person with a hero fantasy had the exact same plan. 2. Military weapons require maintenance you don't have, ammo you can't find, and training you never got. 3. There's something in your garage right now that will keep you alive longer than any rifle ever could. Here's what most people don't realize. The best zombie-killing tools were never designed to kill zombies. They were designed to do repetitive, brutal work in difficult conditions with zero maintenance for decades. They're silent, they're everywhere, and they don't run out of bullets when you need them most. Let's be real for a minute. That AR-15 fantasy dies the moment you fire your third magazine and realize you've just announced your position to every shambling corpse within half a mile. Military weapons are built for military scenarios with military supply chains. You're not military. You don't have resupply, you don't have an armorer. If you're serious about making it past week 2, you need to think like someone who understands that violence in the apocalypse isn't about firepower. It's about silence, efficiency, and tools that work when everything else has failed. Subscribe and hit that bell because we're about to destroy every tactical fantasy you've been nursing and replace it with actual survival strategy. All right, here's the scenario. It's day 7 of the outbreak. The initial chaos has settled into a grim pattern. Fast movers, classic Romero rules, headshots only. You're in suburban America, which means you've got houses with garages, garden sheds, and home improvement stores that have already been picked clean of guns and ammunition. Every firearm in a 10-mile radius is either in someone else's hands or already expended on panic firing. What you do have is a garden shed that nobody bothered to raid because they were too busy fighting over the last box of 9mm. And that shed contains weapons that will outlast and outperform 90% of the tactical gear people died trying to acquire. Here's the thing, these aren't weapons, they're tools. Which means they're legal, accessible, and sitting in sheds across the continent right now, while everyone else bleeds out over the last rifle in the sporting goods store. No plot armor, no infinite ammo, no weapon maintenance fairy. Just you, the dead, and the question of what actually keeps you breathing when the fantasy collapses. Number 1, the machete. Yeah, I know. That's not a garden tool, that's a weapon. Wrong. It's a brush-clearing implement that happens to be designed for repetitive chopping through dense organic material. Military combat knives are built for stabbing and slicing in combat scenarios with humans. Machetes are built to hack through jungle vegetation for 8 hours straight without dulling. See the difference? The obvious choice here is going for the car bar or some tactical folder you saw in a movie. Sounds reasonable until you understand that combat knives are designed for precision work on targets that will bleed out and stop moving. Zombies don't bleed out. They don't feel pain. That tactical tanto point you paid $200 for is optimized for penetration and slashing against living tissue that responds to trauma. Zombie tissue doesn't respond. It just keeps coming until you destroy the brain. A machete weighs between 1 and 2 pounds depending on pattern. That weight is concentrated in the blade, creating momentum that carries through the swing. You're not stabbing, you're chopping. And every swing has the mass behind it to crack skulls and sever vertebrae without requiring perfect technique. Military blades require training to use effectively. Machetes require you to understand the same physics you use when splitting firewood. Here's what separates the machete from tactical alternatives. It's forgiving. Miss the skull slightly. The weight distribution still delivers enough force to crack bone. Hit at a bad angle? The curved blade redirects into the cutting arc instead of binding. Use it for 6 hours straight? The design prevents the same repetitive stress injuries you get from combat knives. And when you're not using it to destroy skulls, you're using it to clear brush, process wood, and do a dozen other tasks that keep you alive. The fix is simple. You want a Latin-style machete with an 18 to 22-inch blade, not the lightweight camping version, not the tactical mall ninja variant with serrations and sawbacks, just a simple, heavy, curved blade with a full tang and a comfortable grip. It should feel slightly front-heavy like an axe. That's not a flaw, that's the feature that makes it work. Number 2, the spading fork. 4 tines, wooden handle designed to break up soil and move compost. Your brain is screaming, "That's not a weapon, that's for digging." That's mistake number one. The instinct is to grab a spear or a pike, something purpose-built for stabbing. Here's why that kills you. Spears have a single point. Miss by 3 inches, and you've just committed to a thrust that leaves you overextended. With a weapon that's now tangled in clothing or caught in bone, you pull back, you struggle, and while you're fighting physics, 3 more shamblers close the distance. A spading fork has 4 tines spaced roughly 2 inches apart. That spread means you don't need perfect accuracy. Thrust at center mass, and at least 2 tines connect. Thrust at the head, and you're putting multiple penetration points into the skull simultaneously, which means you're not relying on a single point to find the brain. You're shotgunning the cranial cavity with steel spikes. But here's what most people don't realize about the defensive advantages. The tines create spacing. A zombie grabs for you and their hands contact the tines before they contact your body. Those tines don't just penetrate, they create a cage. You can control the threat at a distance, pushing back against the sternum or skull while maintaining separation. Try that with a bat or a knife, and you're in grappling range immediately. The length of the handle gives you 50 inches of standoff. That's not a weapon stat, that's the difference between breathing and being bitten. You can thrust, you can push, you can leverage the fork to topple a shambler and pin it while you finish it with something else. And when you're done clearing the immediate threat, you use the same tool to break through doors, pry open windows, or actually dig the defensive positions you need. The obvious trap here is thinking you need something sharper or more aggressive. The tines on a spading fork are designed to penetrate compacted soil. That's harder than a human skull. They taper to points that punch through resistance, and the spacing prevents binding. You're not fighting the tool. You're using physics that's already been engineered for repetitive penetration of resistant material. Number 3. The mattock. If you don't know what this is, it's time to learn. One side is a horizontal adze blade for chopping. The other side is a vertical pick for breaking through hard ground. Total weight is 5 to 7 pounds concentrated in the head. This is not a precision instrument. This is controlled violence on a stick. Your instinct says, grab an axe. Axes are weapons, right? Vikings used them. Here's the problem with axes in zombie scenarios. The wide blade is designed to split wood along the grain. Swing it at a skull and yeah, you'll do damage. But that wide profile means you're committing maximum energy to maximum surface area. If you don't connect perfectly, you're dealing with deflection and blade binding. The Mattock solves this with simple geometry. The pick side is a narrow wedge that concentrates all that weight into a tiny impact point. Swing it at a skull and you're delivering 7 pounds of steel through an area smaller than your thumbnail. That's not cutting, that's penetrating. The pick punches through bone, scrambles the brain, and withdraws cleanly because the narrow profile doesn't bind. The adze side is your crowd control, wide horizontal blade moving in a lateral arc. You're not trying to split skulls, you're trying to destroy neck structure and sever spinal columns. One good swing at neck height, and you've dropped the threat even if you miss the kill shot. The shambler's motor control is gone. It's on the ground. You finish it at your leisure. But here's what separates the mattock from every other blunt instrument. It's a breaching tool. That pick side goes through doors, through drywall, through car windows. You're not just fighting zombies. You're fighting the environment. The mattock gives you access to spaces that bats and knives and even firearms can't provide. You need through a wall. The pick makes entry points. You need to demolish a staircase to create a choke point. The mattock is a demolition tool that happens to destroy skulls. The weight is the feature, not the flaw. Yeah, it's heavy. That's what makes every swing count. You're not relying on edge sharpness or perfect technique. You're relying on mass times velocity equals force, and the mattock has both mass and leverage built into the design. Number 4, the pickaxe. Similar to the mattock but purpose-built for breaking rock. 9 pounds of steel, 3-foot handle, a single pick point designed to fracture stone. If you think this is overkill for zombies, you're not thinking about what happens when the dead start wearing riot gear. The trap here is assuming you'll always be fighting unarmored threats. Sounds reasonable until you remember that police died in this outbreak too. Military died. People in motorcycle jackets and construction helmets died. And now they're walking around with impact protection that stops your bat, your knife, and even your machete. Helmets deflect blunt force. Body armor stops penetration. But a pickaxe doesn't care about your personal protective equipment. 9 pounds of steel moving through an arc drives that pick point through plastic, through metal, through Kevlar. It's designed to break granite. Your skull is mostly calcium. Do the math. The reach matters more than you think. Standard pickaxe gives you 36 inches of handle plus the head. That's 3 feet of standoff before contact. You can strike from outside grabbing range, which means you can work systematically without panic. You set your stance, you swing, you connect, you withdraw. It's repetitive work, same as the tool was designed for. And here's the bonus feature nobody talks about. You can hook and pull with the pick point. Zombie stumbles, you hook clothing or bone and drag it to the ground. You create angles and leverage that let you control the threat without needing to connect with a perfect strike. Wrestling with something that wants to bite you is how you die. The pickaxe lets you move threats around at a distance. The downside is the weight. You're not swinging this for 30 minutes straight, but you're also not in a 30-minute fight unless everything's already gone catastrophically wrong. You're in short, decisive engagements where each swing matters and each swing ends a threat. The pickaxe makes each swing count. Number 5, the pole pruner. And this is where I lose half of you, because this looks like a joke. It's not. It's the most underrated weapon in this entire list. The immediate reaction is, I can't kill zombies with pruning shears. That's because you're thinking about the 6-inch hand shears your grandma uses on roses. A pole pruner is a blade on an extendable pole that lets you cut branches from the ground. Extended, you're looking at 8 to 12 feet of reach. The blade is curved, sharp, and operated by a lever mechanism that multiplies your pulling force. Here's what everyone misses. Zombies have to get close to bite you. That's their only attack vector. The person who controls distance controls the engagement. The pole pruner lets you attack from 12 feet away. You can stand on a second-floor balcony and strike targets on the ground. You can reach through fence gaps without exposing yourself. You can engage from behind barriers while maintaining complete safety. The blade mechanism is designed to cut through branches up to 2 inches in diameter. A human neck is roughly 4 inches in diameter and mostly soft tissue. You position the blade, you pull the lever, and the bypass action closes with enough force to sever the spinal column. It's not a fast kill, but it's a safe kill, and safe beats fast when you're working alone. The defensive applications are even better. You can use it to pull supplies toward you without leaving cover. You can hook and drag obstacles into position. You can reach infected bodies and move them without physical contact. The pole becomes an extension of your safe zone, letting you interact with the environment from behind whatever protection you've established. The obvious problem is durability. This isn't designed for combat. The mechanism can break, the pole can bend. But here's the thing. While it's working, it's giving you capabilities that no other tool provides. And when it breaks, you still have the blade section, which functions as a machete. You haven't lost capability. You've just compressed your effective range. The practical advice is simple. You don't choose one tool, you layer them based on scenario. Pole pruner for initial contact and long-range work. Mattock or pickaxe for armored threats and breaching. Spading fork for mid-range defense. Machete for close work and utility. Each tool covers what the others don't. Now, the assessment. If you're equipped with these 5 tools instead of chasing military fantasies, what's your actual survival rating? Short-term, day 1 through 30. You're looking at an 8 out of 10. You have silence, which means you're not attracting every shambler in the area. You have durability, which means your weapons don't stop working when you need them. You have versatility, which means you can adapt to different threats without being locked into a single approach. The 2 points you lose are for the learning curve. These aren't intuitive weapons. You need to understand striking mechanics, leverage points, and how to work without creating exhaustion. You need to develop the muscle memory that keeps you alive when things get fast and ugly. But that's the cost of using real tools instead of fantasy solutions. Long-term, month 2 through 6. Your rating drops to a 6 out of 10, but not because the tools fail. Because every tool requires maintenance you might not have. Handles split. Blades dull, metal corrodes. The difference is that garden tool maintenance is simpler than firearm maintenance. You can sharpen a machete with a rock. You can't manufacture ammunition. The harsh reality is that long-term survival isn't about what weapon you carry. It's about whether you understand that every choice compounds. You choose silence over firepower. You live longer because you're not announcing your position. You choose tools over weapons. You live longer because when the fighting stops, you still have implements that build defenses and process food and do the actual work of staying alive. So here's your homework. Look at your garage or shed right now. Seriously, go look. What do you actually have versus what you wish you had? Can you use the tools that are sitting there collecting dust? Or are you still fantasizing about tactical gear you'll never acquire? Rate yourself honestly. No plot armor, no video game respawn. Just the truth. If the outbreak happened right now, are you the person who goes for the gun store and dies in the stampede? Or are you the person who walks past the chaos to grab the tools everyone else ignored? All right, your turn. Which tool on this list surprises you most? Which one would you trust your life to? And which military weapon are you finally ready to admit is a fantasy? Drop your tactical assessments in the comments and let's see who actually understands the difference between looking dangerous and staying alive. If you want more survival strategy that prioritizes reality over fantasy, subscribe and hit the bell. Because we're here to make sure you're the one who makes it past week 2, while everyone else is still arguing about calibers. Stay sharp, stay silent, and remember, the best weapon is the one that lets you avoid the fight in the first place.